I read 47 books last year, and I can't even tell you a single thing about them. I know I read them. I have the highlights. I have the finished status. But if you were to ask me to explain one key idea, nothing. Turns out that I wasn't actually reading. I was just skimming my eyes across the words. But then I discovered what reading actually does to your brain and why 99% of people get this completely wrong. So in this video, I'm gonna show you the neuroscience of what happens when you actually read, why your brain is getting weaker even though you're reading more, and the exact method that I use now that changed everything. This gets weird. Let's go. All right, let me ask you something. When was the last time you read something for more than 10 minutes without checking your phone? Be honest, because I couldn't do it. I would read a page, check my email, read another page, check my Instagram, read a paragraph, check TikTok, and I kept telling myself, I'm still reading though. I'm still getting through books. But here's what I didn't realize. My brain was being rewired, and not in a good way. There's this neuroscientist named Dr. Marianne Wolf who spent 20 years studying how reading changes the brain, and she discovered something terrifying. Our brains are adapting to the internet, to social media, to constant distraction. And the more that we adapt to that, the less we're able to do deep reading. Here's how it works. Your brain has this thing called neuroplasticity. Basically, it rewires itself based on what you do repeatedly. If you spend hours scrolling TikTok, your brain gets really good at processing short, fast, and stimulating content. But it gets worse at sustained attention, at deep thinking, at actually understanding complex ideas. And here's the scary part. You don't even notice it's happening. Honestly, I didn't even notice that I couldn't focus anymore. I just thought that books were just getting boring and authors were just getting worse, but it's not the books. It's my brain. I trained my brain to crave distraction. And the more I fed that craving, the weaker my reading brain became. So when I tried to read, even though my eyes were moving across the words, my brain wasn't actually processing them. I was in what Dr. Wolf calls skimming mode. Basically just scanning for key points and not actually going deep. Okay, so let me show you what's supposed to happen when you actually read, because this blew my mind. First thing you need to know is that reading is not natural at all. Humans weren't born knowing how to read. We were born knowing how to speak and to listen. So if you think about it, reading is man-made. Think about it. If you drop a kid in a different country, they'll learn the language fluently. Our brain is wired for that. But reading, you have to explicitly be taught. Your brain has to create entirely new pathways. And here's what's crazy. If you look at a single letter, just one letter, like the letter J, that activates both hemispheres of your brain, 5 different regions from your frontal cortex all the way to your frontal lobe. Everything is firing. Your brain is working harder to read one letter than it does watching an entire TikTok video. But it gets even better. When you read a sentence, like actually read it and understand it, your brain doesn't just process the words. It creates an experience. If you read "The coffee was hot," your brain activates the same regions that were fired if you actually touch something hot. If you read about someone who's feeling anxious, your brain simulates anxiety, your heart rate may increase, your palms may get sweaty. This is what makes reading the only medium that forces your brain to actively create an experience. When you watch a video, I'm giving you everything, the visuals, the sounds, the emotion. Your brain is passive. But when you read, your brain has to generate all of that. You have to imagine the world, the characters, the feelings. And that process, that active simulation is what builds your imagination, your creativity, your ability to think in ways that doesn't exist. But only if you actually do it, only if you read deeply enough to trigger that stimulation. And that's where most people are failing, including me. for years. So I need to tell you about my disaster in 2025. It's embarrassing, but this is very important. I discovered AI summaries, and I thought that I found the secret hack. Like why would I spend 5 hours reading a book when I can just ask AI to summarize the key points of the book for me? Like, why would I do that? So I was reading 10 books a week. I felt so productive. I felt smart. But when I tried to actually have a conversation about it, I had nothing. Like I just couldn't think about it. Like I couldn't connect it to other ideas. I couldn't apply it because I didn't actually read the book. I just read a quick summary about it. Here's what I learned. When you allow AI to do the reading for you, your brain is not building those neural pathways. That's like LeBron going to the gym and having AI lift the weights for him. He's just standing there. I mean, he's not going to grow any muscles. And that's what I was doing with my brain. I was outsourcing the cognitive work, and my brain was just getting weaker. The value of reading isn't the information. You can get information anywhere. The value is the process, the struggle of understanding, the effort of imagining, the effort of connecting the ideas together. Now, I'm not throwing any shade at AI. I think AI is a great tool to use to mitigate a lot of repetitive and tedious tasks. Like, I use AI to do research for this video, for an example, but we'll talk about that in another video. But when you actually skip the process of actually reading, when you use summaries or speed read or skim through a book just to say that you read it, you're robbing yourself of the only thing that actually matters. So I deleted AI summaries and I went back to actually reading books and actually reading the way that you're supposed to read. All right, so here's the method that I use. It's based on advice from Jordan Peterson and neuroscience research. It's 3 simple rules, but you have to actually follow them. All right, so rule number 1, read without capturing. No highlighting, no underlining, and no taking notes while you read. I know it feels wrong. I know you're probably thinking, well, what if I forget something that's important? That's the point. You're supposed to forget. Forgetting is a part of learning. And when you highlight something while you're reading, you're tricking your brain into thinking that it doesn't need to remember. Oh, it's highlighted, I can come back to it later. But your brain never comes back to it, and we never actually learn it. So instead, just read. Just be fully present and think about what you're reading, and trust that if it's something important, that you'll remember it. And this is where rule number 2 comes into play. Close the book and think. After you read a few chapters or even just a few pages, close the book. Don't immediately move on. Just sit there and think. Ask yourself, what did I just read? What was the main idea? How does this connect to what I already know? And here's the key. If you can't answer any of those questions, you didn't actually read it. So just go back and read it again. This is what Jordan Peterson means when he says, read, write, think. You're not just reading words, you're processing ideas. Rule number 3, write in your own words. Now, this is the sauce. After you thought about what you read, grab a notebook and write down what you remember. But wait, here's the critical part. Do not copy sentences from the book. Write it in your own words. Because when you reformulate an idea into your own language, you're forcing your brain to truly understand it. You're not just storing information, you're integrating it into your existing knowledge network. And every connection you make is another pathway to recall that information later. This is how you actually build a reading brain, not just by reading more books, but by reading fewer books more deeply. Okay, so now you know the method, but here's the problem. You're not actually going to do it. Not because you don't want to, but because you haven't made it a habit yet. So let me give you the exact habit system that I use. It's based on implementation First, implementation intention. Instead of saying, I'm going to read more, you say, tomorrow at 8 o'clock after dinner, I'm going to read for 20 minutes before bed. See the difference? You're not leaving it to chance. You're not leaving it vague. You're actually setting an appointment. See when, where, and how long. Your brain doesn't have to make a decision in the moment. And 20 minutes is key. That's short enough to not give you any excuses and long enough to actually get into deep reading. Now, temptation bundling. This is probably going to be your favorite part. This is when you attach reading with something that you enjoy. For example, let's say I'm going to read for 20 minutes, and then after that, I'm going to watch the show that I've been binge watching. See, if you do it this way, your brain associates reading with pleasure, and it makes it way easier to do it this way. My challenge to you is do this every single day for 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, and I'm confident that you'll start to notice a difference. You'll start to think more clearly. You'll probably feel less stressed. You'll probably feel smarter. And that's because you're not just reading words, you're rewiring your brain. All right, so why is this bigger than just reading books? We're living in an age now where AI can pretty much summarize anything, where we can learn anything in 5 minutes and information is pretty much infinite. But what most people aren't talking about is how that is making us lose sight on how to think. Because we're not building the neural pathways that make thinking possible anymore. We're consuming more and processing less. We're skimming more and understanding less. And the ability to think deeply, to critically think, and to connect new possibilities and ideas, that's a skill that most of us are starting to lose sight on. AI can only remix what already exists, but your brain can create something entirely new, something that never existed before, but only if you train it, only if you actually do the hard work of deep reading. So this isn't about just reading more books. This is about building a brain that can actually think. And in this age, that's the only competitive advantage that we have left. All right, so here's your homework, and I actually want you to do this. Tonight, pick one book. It doesn't matter what it is, just as long as it's something that you're interested in. Set a timer for 20 minutes and put your phone in another room. And just read. No highlighting, no note taking, just read and think. After 20 minutes, close the book and just sit there for a minute and think about what you just read. Then grab a notebook and then write down what you can remember in your own words. And that's it. That's the whole system. So just start off by doing this every day for the next 2 weeks. And if your brain feels different, come back and let me know. And drop a comment below to let me know what book you're starting off with. And if you want more educational content like this, hit subscribe. Remember, you're not trying to read more books. You're trying to build a better brain. And the only way to do that is to read deeply, intentionally, the way your brain was meant to. See you in the next one.